Good morning. This is Father Stephen Kelly from St. John's Church in Detroit, and we're continuing our series of daily morning meditations where we generally look at one or another lessons that are assigned for morning or evening prayer, what is known as the daily office lectionary. And today let's look at St. Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, which is assigned for morning prayer. We are on the first letter, chapter 15, beginning at verse 1. Moreover, brethren, I declare unto you the gospel which I preached unto you, which also ye have received, and wherein ye stand, by which ye also are saved, if ye keep in memory what I preached unto you, unless ye believed in vain. For I delivered unto you first of all that which I also received, how that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he rose again the third day according to the Scriptures, and that he was seen of Cephas, then of the 12, and after that he was seen above 500 brethren at once, of whom the greater part remain unto this present, but some are fallen asleep. After that he was seen of James, then of all the apostles. And last of all, he was seen of me also, as one born out of due time. For I am the least of the apostles, that I am not meet to be called apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. But by the grace of God, I am what I am. And his grace, which was bestowed upon me, was not in vain. But I labored more abundantly than they all, yet not I, but the grace of God, which was with me. Therefore, whether with I or they, so we preached, and so ye believed. Okay, so interesting. I received a letter this week from some person. Every once in a while, I get this random strange mail. And this person, it's usually without an address. This one actually had a city and a name on it, but no a street address. And then, of course, it was this long diatribe saying how St. Paul was actually not supposed to be an apostle and that he was somehow a heretic. You'd be amazed how often I run into things like this. Actually, I had a guy walk into my office in my last parish and trying to convince me of that very thing. Now, the church has always believed that Paul had the same gospel that was given to him by Jesus Christ. Even though he was not one of the 12 apostles who walked with Jesus during his earthly ministry and were witnesses to his resurrection, as he says, I'm one untimely born. In other words, he's one who came to the faith later, rather than at the time the apostles did, and they had the great grace to actually be with Jesus during his earthly ministry. But Jesus certainly made a unique appearance to Paul, and the gospel that he preaches is certainly the gospel of God, the story of Jesus Christ, the good news. And it's all summed up in this one line, and that is that Jesus Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures. In other words, what the Old Testament predicted would happen, that's what happened in Jesus Christ, just as predicted. That is the core of the gospel, that Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins. That's it. That's how we get to heaven. And so he goes on to talk again, of course, of all the people who have witnessed. And then, of course, he was a late comer to the story. And he actually, as you remember, persecuted the Church of God. He was a witness to the stoning of St. Stephen. He had a writ of permission from the elders, the Jewish leadership, to go and persecute Christians and to bring them bound back to Jerusalem. And so it is that God put a stop to that with some forcefulness. And of course, Paul came to be the person that he is. And of course, he gives at the end of this little section, he says, it's by the grace of God, I am what I am. In other words, he gives God the glory. And he says, and even though he says, I'm a good preacher, and I'm good at sharing this, he says, it's not me. I'm not the one who's doing it. It's but the grace of God, which was with me. In other words, he gives God all the glory. As I like to remind myself, I'm supposed to, anytime I get a compliment, I say, look, it's all by God's grace, and it's all to his glory. Right? I don't want to take the credit for myself. And St. Paul is definitely doing that in today's lesson. So today's Saturday, and so we don't have worship at St. John's today, but if you get a chance to go to worship, do so. If you're not, you can certainly pray at home, and I suggest that you pray at home, even if you go to worship, because it is vital that we be people of prayer. And I hope that your Saturday is a day that is full of blessings.